for the sake of his pride, my fiancé slapped me hard across the face in front of everyone. That same day, I deleted him from my life. No one could believe it. Julian Shen and I grew up together. From age 6 to 24, I had followed him like a shadow for 18 long years. On the day I was leaving the country, he stopped me, his voice laced with a confusion I'd never heard before. Why? Just because I hit you? I looked him straight in the eye and said, word by word, yes, just because you hit me. The moment that slap landed, my world went silent. Julian's hand cut through the air with a sharp whistle, a dull thud, my head snapped to the side, a metallic taste filled my mouth, and my ears rang as if 1,000 bees were buzzing inside my skull. I stumbled, catching myself on the edge of a desk, my fingertips trembling. My left cheek was numb at first, then it began to burn with a searing pain, as if I'd been branded with a hot iron. When I looked up, I saw Julian's hand still hovering in midair, his knuckles white. My childhood friend, my fiancé, was standing up for his female secretary by giving me a public slap in the face. Julian realized what had done, his expression freezing for a second before being quickly replaced by anger and impatience. Lucy Ching, can you stop making a scene? Someone in the office let out a low snicker. Most people just watched in silence, taking in the drama. Isabel Fuss' chestnut curls shone like honey under the lights. She leaned against Julian's side, a smirk playing on her red lips. Julian, don't be so harsh. Look, you've scared her. Your little pet is about to cry. At her words, Julian's jaw tightened, the anger in his eyes still burning. Lucy, this is an office, not your home. Are you done yet? His voice was laced with ice, and a ripple of quiet laughter spread through the room. I felt something wet on the corner of my mouth, unsure if it was blood or tears. 18 years, I had seen every side of his temper, but I never knew he could hit so hard. Shame, grief, and rage twisted inside me, and my nails dug deep into my palms. Julian started to say something else, but I didn't want to hear it. As I grabbed my bag and stormed out the glass door, I heard someone whisper behind me, oh my God, if I were her, I'd be too embarrassed to ever show my face in this company again. I didn't know where to go, but I knew I wasn't going back to work. I certainly didn't want to stay and face that crowd. Julian had always been impatient with me, but this was the first time he had ever hit me. Not only that, it was the first time in my entire life anyone had ever slapped me. When we moved into our new house at the age of 6, Julian was crouching in the hallway, playing with his toy cars. Sunlight slanted through the window at the end of the corridor, stretching his shadow so long that it just touched the tips of my shoes. We lived next door, sharing a small garden. My mother always said Julian and I were two little saplings growing up door to door, destined to walk side by side, except his tree had always grown taller and stronger than mine. So, for all these years, I was the one always trying to catch up, but we did have our innocent, happy times. The winter of 2nd grade was especially cold. When Leo Chen from the back row stuck his chewed gum in my ponytail, I heard the classroom erupt in jeers. I started to cry, and the teacher tried to smooth things over. He only teases you because you're pretty. He just wants to play with you. Stop crying now. Her words were even more disgusting than the gum in my hair. I cried all the way home that day. When Julian's father heard about it, he called his son, who was doing his homework. Julian, go check out class 22 tomorrow. The next day, during our morning exercises, Julian kicked open the back door of our classroom. I've remembered that scene for 15 years. He pounced on Leo like a young leopard, slamming his fist on the boy's desk with a loud bang. Listen up, he snarled, grabbing Leo by the collar, his voice still holding the softness of a child's. Lucy is my sister. If you ever bully her again, I'll kill you. As he left, he smiled and patted my head reassuringly. From that day on, I became a little tail he couldn't shake. In middle school, after his soccer games, had always wanted to get ice cream with his teammates. I would sit by the field, hugging my backpack, until the setting sun stretched our shadows long. He'd grumble as he pulled me up. Lucy, are you made of superglue? But he would still break his strawberry popsicle in half and give me a piece. He genuinely hated being told he had a shadow everywhere he went. Once, during a game of marbles, his friend teased, look, Julian brought his wifey. He got so angry he threw all his marbles down a storm drain. But the next day, when I had a fever and missed school, he skipped class and climbed the wall to my house. He threw little paper notes through my window with silly jokes written on them. In high school, I caught Julian staring at me countless times. When I was chewing on my pen trying to solve a math problem, when I tucked a stray hair behind my ear, even when I was napping at my desk, his gaze was like the flutter of a cicada's wings in summer, a light touch. then gone in a flash. Julian. I suddenly turned my head, catching his eyes before he could look away. How do you do this problem? His pen clattered onto the desk. The morning light streamed through the window, making his crimson earlobes almost translucent. He fumbled to pick up the pen, his hair brushing against the back of my hand. You just substitute this X into. His voice trailed off into a mumble. I rested my chin on my hand and watched him. So the boy who wouldn't flinch while fighting for me could have trembling fingers just because I was near. Outside, magnolia petals fell onto his open textbook. The night our parents suggested we get engaged. He pulled me into the fire escape. The motion-activated light flickered on and off. His palms were sweaty, but he gripped my fingers so tightly it hurt. Think carefully, he said, his voice tight. You're still young. What if you meet someone better later? I stood on my toes and covered his lips. Julian is the best person in the world. He shuddered and then pressed me against the wall and kissed me. In the darkness, I felt the scar on the back of his neck, from when he shielded me from a falling object in 8th grade. The moonlight filtered through the iron bars, casting dappled shadows on us. It made me believe we were in love. After college, I joined the Shin group and became Julian's subordinate. Just as we were about to get engaged, Isabel Fu appeared. She was the company's new intern and Julian's secretary. On her first day, she brought coffee for every colleague, smiling brightly. Please guide me in the future, everyone. When she reached me, the coffee cup paused in midair. Oh my God, she giggled, covering her mouth. People still use Hello Kitty thermoses. That's so lame. When I didn't respond, she bit her lip. Oh, I'm sorry, I just speak my mind. I didn't mean you're tacky or anything. But, how old are you, big sister? Still so childish. I thought professional women were supposed to be sophisticated and elegant, with good taste. All eyes in the office turned to me like spotlights. My cartoon keyboard, my figurines, even the dustproof stickers on my monitor were all Hello Kitty. These items, which Julian had once lovingly called Luce's treasures, were now being judged by everyone. My ears buzzed as if someone had poured a jug of acid into my skull. It was the first time I had been so maliciously ridiculed in public. The shame was suffocating. Haha, sorry, I'm just a really direct person, she said, tilting her head, her new crystal nails tapping on my Melody coaster. You can't even take a joke, can you, lady? My knuckles turned white as I clutched my skirt. That's enough. Julian's voice came from behind me. When I turned, I saw his lips were already curved into a dangerous line. Sunlight poured in from the floor-to-ceiling window behind him, outlining his silhouette in gold. For a moment, he looked just like the boy who had fought for me in middle school. Isabel pouted. I was just joking with her. Mr. Shen, you're not going to police that too, are you? The office is not a place for chatting. Ms. Fu, if you want to chat, I suggest you resign and chat all you want. Isabel reluctantly returned to her desk. I don't know when Julian and Isabel became so close. Suddenly, one day, the lunch our housekeeper sent over became a 3-person meal. There's not a single dish I like today, I said, my voice trembling. Julian didn't even look up from his report. We're having a light meal today, Isabel said. Eating light occasionally helps cleanse the system. Isabel sat down next to me with her coffee. Sorry about that, sis. I stared at her. She raised an eyebrow, a playful smirk on her red lips. I forgot you don't eat light meals, but it really is healthier. You should eat more of it. You're probably wearing an XL now, right? Not like me, she trailed off, but her smug smile finished the sentence. You really like calling people sis, don't you? I said softly, but my parents only have one daughter, and besides, I think you're a month older than me, aren't you? The office went dead silent. Isabel looked as if she'd been slapped, her carefully drawn eyeliner twitching. Julian finally put down his file, but he was frowning at me. Lucy, that was uncalled for. The boy who once fought someone for calling me a crybaby was now scolding me for another woman. Uncalled for, or did I interrupt something? I sneered and turned to leave. Julian reflexively wrapped his arms around me, just like he did in 8th grade when I was cornered in an alley by thugs. But this time, his embrace smelled of another woman's perfume, and his words of compromise were tinged with impatience. All right, I'll have the cook make Chinese food tomorrow. Don't be mad, okay? Isabel's face instantly darkened. From the next day on, Isabel's targeting of me intensified. I came to work with a Sanrio-themed bag, and she immediately gasped, her voice an octave higher. Wow, Chanel with Sanrio. Lucy, your taste is just something else. Who even likes this stuff anymore? We're all buying Labubu now, you country bumpkin. A few male colleagues snickered along with her. At lunch, I wiped my disposable chopsticks with a wet wipe. She immediately nudged the guy next to her, deliberately mimicking my voice in a high-pitched tone. Oh my, we must disinfect our chopsticks. Are we a Disney princess on the run? Ha ha ha. Several guys played along, making funny faces as if it were the most hilarious thing they'd ever seen. During the annual desk rearrangement, I was struggling to move my monitor, my arms aching. I paused to catch my breath. Isabel immediately slammed her hand on her desk and shouted like a street performer. Look, everyone, the runaway Disney princess can't move her stuff. Are there any knights in shining armor willing to save the damsel in distress? She and her group of male colleagues roared with laughter, some even blatantly taking photos and videos. At first, Julian would frown and mutter, "That's enough, don't go too far," but Isabel would always manage to deflect with a flirty smile. "Oh, come on, it's just a joke. Lucy is always so uptight. I'm just trying to make her a bit more of an E." Julian would fall silent for a moment, then actually nod in agreement. "She is a bit of an I. Are all girls these days so delicate?" Isabel would laugh and punch his arm playfully. "Hey, don't paint us all with the same brush. I'm not like that." Julian would smile, a look of admiration in his eyes. My heart felt like it had been squeezed. Yes, Julian always thought I was delicate, fussy, and introverted. To him, liking anime was childish, being clean was obsessive, and being quiet was introverted. But these were all things he once indulged, until one day, I finally snapped. That year, my parents and I went to the tropics for the Lunar New Year. The sea breeze was gentle, the sun was warm, and I had a wonderful time. So when I came back, my skin was tanned to a honey color. Usually, when I got a tan, it would fade after half a month of staying indoors, so I didn't think much of it. But on my first day back at work, I walked into the office wearing a pink knit sweater, and Isabel's eyes latched onto me like a viper. "Oh my God," she shrieked, her voice rising dramatically as she covered her mouth. "Lucy, you're that tan and you still dare to wear pink." Her laughter was sharp and grating, like nails on a chalkboard. "Ha ha ha, I'm dying. You don't look like a Disney princess now, do you? What Disney princess is as dark as you?" She turned to the guys next to her, winking. "Look at her. She looks like the ugly duckling now." A few of the guys couldn't help but snicker. I froze, the blood rushing to my head, and Julian, standing right next to her, glanced at me, the corners of his mouth twitching upwards in a slight smile. In that moment, I heard something shatter. Maybe it was 18 years of friendship, or maybe it was the love I had for my fiancé. I picked up the coffee on my desk and threw it in Isabel's face. Isabel screamed, her makeup instantly smeared, and the brown liquid ran down her cheeks like two black tears. Cough, cough. "Lucy, are you crazy?" she sputtered, wiping her face, her mascara a clumpy mess. I sneered, mimicking her usual tone. "Wow, didn't you say you were one of the guys? Why would a guy wear a full face of makeup to work? Eyelid tape, false lashes, lipstick. You look more high maintenance than I do. How dare you call yourself one of the guys?" A few colleagues rushed over to restrain me. Julian snatched the cup from my hand, his eyes as cold as ice. "Lucy, apologize." I stared at him, my eyes burning, but my voice was unnervingly calm. "You were laughing when she was humiliating me. Now I'm just telling the truth, and you want me to apologize." He frowned, as if scolding a misbehaving child. "Don't act like a kid. Arguing is one thing, but throwing coffee at someone is wrong. You made a mistake. You should admit it." "Haha, like hell I will." The air froze for a second. The next, his palm slammed across my face. Slap, through the ringing in my ears. I heard Isabel's triumphant sob, the whispers of my colleagues, and the sound of 18 years of friendship shattering with that single blow. I slowly lifted my head and looked at the boy who once fought for me. "Julian Shin, you've really done it now," I said softly. "We're done." The sound of me slamming the door on my way home startled the motion-activated light in the entryway. I burst into my room and started tearing through my belongings like a madwoman. The little prince figurine from the top shelf, the pink sweatshirt he gave me from the back of the closet, the faded movie ticket stubs in the drawer. Everything that held a trace of Julian was violently shoved into a cardboard box. Crash! A glass jar of stars fell from the bookshelf and shattered on the floor. For my 18th birthday, Julian had stayed up all night folding 365 of those stars. Inside each one, he had written, "Julian Shin likes Lucy Ching." I stared at the sparkling shards on the floor and suddenly laughed out loud. I hauled the heavy box outside and threw it into the trash, startling a few sparrows. After I was done, my parents still weren't home. I called my mom. "Mom," my voice was frighteningly calm, "call off the engagement. Julian and I broke up." When my mother came home, I was holding an ice pack to my face. She took one look, gasped, and her well-manicured hands began to tremble. Who did this? I buried my head in her shoulder, breathing in the familiar scent of her laundry detergent, and suddenly started sobbing like a child. Julian's coldness, Isabel's mockery, the piercing stares in the office, all the pain came pouring out. After hearing the whole story, my mother, usually so gentle and elegant, completely lost her composure and stormed out the door. When Julian's mother opened her door, she was still wearing an apron, holding flowers she was about to arrange. "What's all this? Your son hit Lucy for some intern." My mother's voice was like ice. "Mrs. Shen, I ask you to answer with a clear conscience. Our family has never wronged yours. My Lucy, since she was a little girl, I have never laid a single finger on her." Julian's mother's excuses came in fragmented pieces. Julian must not have meant it. My mother didn't want to hear it. There's no need to say more. The engagement between our families is off. That night, my mother held me as we sat by the bay window. Her familiar jasmine scent reminded me of when I had a fever as a child, and she held me just like this all night long. "Mom," I mumbled into her shoulder, "will my being so willful affect your business?" My mother gently combed my hair. "It would be a lie to say there's no impact. But darling, that's not something you need to worry about. All you need to do is be happy every day. If the sky falls, your father will hold it up for you." The next day, Julian's knocking was as frantic as a downpour against the door. When I opened it, he stood under the dim porch light, his chest heaving, clutching the rain-soaked cardboard box. "Lucy," his voice was hoarse, "what crazy stunt are you pulling now?" I silently tilted my face up, letting him see the ugly handprint on my left cheek. After a night, the mark from his slap was even worse. The bruise had spread under the skin, 5 purple finger marks like a brand of shame. Julian's pupils contracted sharply. "You, how could?" He reached out, his fingertips hesitating just before touching my cheek. "I didn't use that much force," I scoffed and pulled away. There was a time when even a paper cut would have me holding it up to him, pouting, "Kiss it better, Julian." Back then, he would call me a crybaby but still carefully apply a band-aid for me. But he was also the one who had hit me. Julian had never seen me so cold, and for a moment, he seemed to be in disbelief. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean it, Lucy. It's just that you were bullying a young girl at the office, and I got angry." I cut him off. "Since you're here, I'll tell you this. From today on, we're broken up. The engagement between our families is cancelled. Julian, from now on, please call me by my full name. If you see me on the street, stay away, and don't ever come knocking on my door like this again." His eyes widened as if he'd been stabbed. The night seeped in through the space between us, casting a cold blue hue on his silhouette. "Get out," I said softly, leaning against the doorframe. Julian looked at me, bewildered. "Is it because I protected Isabel, or because I slapped you?" His eyes swirled with emotions I couldn't decipher. "Lucy, when did you become so petty? It was just one slap. If you want, you can hit me back." "Julian," I slowly pried his fingers from the doorframe. "It's not about the slap. It's that you chose to side with the person who was bullying me, and I don't want you anymore." The motion-activated light in the hallway suddenly went out. Before the darkness swallowed us, the last thing I saw was the redness in his eyes. It merged with the image of the boy who had been injured fighting for me, the boy who had smiled and said it didn't hurt. Julian stood frozen as the box fell to the floor with a thud. A single glass star rolled out, refracting the light into 1,000 broken pieces. Julian's expression was frozen on his face, as if he didn't recognize the person standing before him. He had seen me cry, seen me laugh, seen me act spoiled, but he had never seen me like this, as cold as ice, with a chill in my very gaze. "I didn't mean to, Lucy." His Adam's apple bobbed, his voice strained. "I just lost my head in the heat of the moment." I shook my head. "I don't want to hear it." The night wind blew in through the hallway window, scattering my final words. "Julian, don't come looking for me again." Julian suddenly grabbed my wrist, his grip so tight it felt like it could shatter bone. His eyes were terrifyingly red, like a cornered, enraged animal. "Is it really that serious?" he gritted out. "For one slap, you're going to throw away 20 years of history. Lucy, when did you become so unreasonable?" I quietly watched his rage, suddenly remembering the time in 9th grade when a boy harassed me. Julian had calmly beaten the boy until he begged for mercy. Now, he was turning that same fury on me. "Yes, it is, Julian." I said. "It is, so don't push your luck," I replied. Julian suddenly laughed, a sound colder than the night wind. "Fine, just fine." He let go of my hand. "Break up then. You've got guts." "Lucy, I hope you don't come crying back to me." As he turned to leave, he knocked over a potted plant in the hallway. The sound of the pot shattering triggered the garden lights. I stood in the flickering light, watching his back disappear around the corner of the garden. It was like watching the boy from my childhood, the one who fought for me, disappear completely into the past. Next door, I heard the click of a lock. Julian's father was standing at the door. He saw me, opened his mouth to speak, but in the end, just sighed softly. That night, I had a dream. I dreamt of an 18-year-old Julian shouting under a starry sky, "Lucy, we'll be together forever and ever." The next day at work, the gossip in the office break room was spreading like wildfire. Apparently, Julian and Isabel were officially dating. As I walked past with my Americano, I saw Isabel standing on her toes, adjusting Julian's tie. Her new cherry red nail polish was blindingly bright in the morning sun. Julian, her voice was sickly sweet. "Let's go to my favorite Japanese restaurant to celebrate tonight." "Okay." Julian's gaze drifted over her shoulder and suddenly met mine. He instinctively started to pull back, but Isabel hooked her arms around his neck. She followed his gaze, turned, and gave me a victorious smile. At my desk, the group chat was exploding. "I heard Isabel came in Julian's car this morning. I saw a hickey on her neck. Is Director Ching okay?" I closed the chat window, remembering last month's department dinner. Isabel had held up her sake and announced, "I hate being around women. They're so noisy and gossipy." At the time, she was practically draped over Julian's chair. "It's so much better hanging out with guys. Guys aren't so sensitive and you can just say whatever you want." As soon as she finished, the female colleagues exchanged knowing glances. The next morning, Isabel posted a pouty selfie online, got ostracized by the female colleagues again, crying emoji. "I guess telling the truth really gets you shunned." The accompanying photo was of a Bulgari necklace Julian had bought to console her. That evening, I was complaining to my parents on the sofa. My mother was arranging flowers. Hearing my story, she snipped the thorns off a rose. "I've seen plenty of people like her. Honey, don't get too close to her. You might get hurt." "Auntie, it's not very nice to talk about people behind their backs." Julian's voice came from the entryway. He was carrying a box of lychees his father had sent over, but his eyes were as cold as ice. The living room fell silent, the only sound the snip of scissors cutting through a flower stem. Looking back now, perhaps that's when I became the narrow-minded gossip in his eyes, and Isabel became his sincere and unpretentious dream girl. Later, I heard the gossip from other colleagues. Apparently, at some point, he and Isabel had developed a deep friendship. Isabel was good at making PowerPoint presentations, and they were indeed beautiful. The animations were smooth, the layout was exquisite, and she could even handle the data visualizations that gave Julian the biggest headaches. When I used to help him revise proposals, I couldn't help but nag, "The logic here is wrong. That color scheme is too harsh." Isabel never did that. She would just lean in close to the screen, resting her chin on her hand, her hair brushing against Julian's arm. "Julian, I made this bar chart dynamic for you." The tips of Julian's ears would turn red, just like they did when I had surprised him with a kiss on the cheek all those years ago. It was even more obvious during team-building activities. The last one was at a pool hall. I, along with most of the female colleagues, had always avoided such events, but Isabel's skill at clearing the table earned her cheers from all the men. Julian's friends slung their arms around his shoulders, teasing, "See, Isabel knows how to have fun. Much better than that delicate flower of yours." I accidentally saw their private messages too. Isabel had sent a dramatic crying emoji. "Need comfort. Director Ching was mean to me again today QAQ. Julian had replied, "Ignore her. She's probably on her period again." Once, after a department meeting, Isabel openly sat on Julian's lap, twirling his tie around her finger. "We're in a proper relationship, not like some people who only got engaged by clinging to their childhood friendship, right?" She suddenly looked at me. "Oh, you don't think I'm talking about you, do you?" Julian didn't push her away. He just looked at me with a strange expression, as if he were scrutinizing someone he despised. In that moment, I finally understood. A childhood sweetheart stood no chance against a new flame. 18 years of companionship lost to 3 months of infatuation. Someone glanced my way, their eyes filled with pity and curiosity. After all, everyone in the company knew that the director who once only smiled for Julian Shen was now the backdrop to his new romance. I said nothing, just returned to my desk and started working on a report. Julian's scoff echoed from the meeting room doorway. I never looked up, but I could feel his gaze on me like a lit cigarette, burning the top of my head. After that, their public displays of affection became more and more frequent. Isabel put a strawberry hair tie on Julian's wrist, the pink elastic digging into his tan skin like a mark of ownership. The sounds of kissing and heavy breathing would sometimes echo from the fire escape. A cleaning lady once walked in on them, and the whole building knew. She would always leave the office holding his arm, and he would let her, a smile on his face. It was strange. The sight that once made my heart tremble now just looked like a bad teen drama. Until one evening, Julian cornered me in the parking garage. He smelled of Isabel's perfume, but his expression was a complex, unfamiliar mix. "Lucy," his voice was hoarse, "let's get back together." I laughed coldly and refused him outright. Julian's fingers clamped around my wrist like a vice, his palm scorching hot, the force almost enough to crush my bones. His breathing was heavy, smelling of bitter coffee. As he leaned in, his eyes looked like those of a trapped animal on the verge of collapse. "Lucy," his Adam's apple bobbed, his voice suddenly softening. "I was wrong. I was only with Isabel to make you angry. Let's get back together." "Okay, if you agree, I'll break up with her right now." I laughed. What did Julian take me for? A backup he could summon at will. I yanked my hand back. "Julian, listen to me." The elevator dinged open, and Isabel rushed out, her face pale. She wasn't wearing any makeup and clutched a lab report in her hand. The moment she saw us, tears streamed down her face. "Julian, the baby, our baby is gone." Julian's expression froze. He let go of me and turned to steady her, but she violently pushed him away. "Are you satisfied now, Director Chung?" Isabel cried, throwing the miscarriage report at my face. The edge of the paper cut my cheek like a razor blade. "It's all your fault for making me work overtime yesterday. Now my baby with Julian is gone. Are you happy now?" Julian's hand gripped my wrist like a branding iron. I could feel my own pulse throbbing against his palm. His eyes were dangerously dark, as if he wanted to devour me whole. "Why, did you do this on purpose?" "I didn't, believe it or not." "Lucy," his voice was a ragged whisper, "when did you become so vicious?" I kicked him hard in the shin, my high heel leaving a dusty mark on his custom trousers. I said, "I didn't. Now get off me, don't touch me." Just as Julian winced and reached for me again, a hand with long, well-defined fingers suddenly intervened. The slender fingers rested casually on Julian's wrist, but it was enough to make his face change instantly. "Sir," a cool, clear voice said with an undeniable authority, "forcing a lady isn't very gentlemanly." I looked up sharply and met a pair of smiling, almond-shaped eyes. Adrian Fu. He was a legend from the law school, a sharp-tongued debater who could argue his opponents into silence. "Adrian." I stood frozen. We hadn't seen each other since the National University debate finals 3 years ago. I never expected to meet him again like this. Adrian's lips curved slightly. He leaned in close to my ear. "Lucy, play along." The moment his warm breath touched my earlobe, he suddenly applied pressure with his hand. Julian grunted in pain and released his grip. Without waiting for Julian to react, I got in my car and drove away. The last thing I saw in my rearview mirror was Adrian standing in front of Julian, calmly adjusting his cufflink. He looked both regal and dangerous, like a snow leopard guarding its territory. The next day was a team-building event, and I wasn't feeling well. The sun was blindingly hot. I was walking at the back of the group, my back already soaked with cold sweat. By the time black spots started appearing at the edge of my vision, I knew something was wrong. The moment my knees hit the gravel path, I heard a chorus of gasps. "Lucy." A familiar scent enveloped me. Julian's arm shot out and wrapped around my waist, his grip so tight it felt like it could break my ribs. His fingertips were trembling, but he tried to keep his voice steady. "Skipped breakfast again, didn't you?" The circle of colleagues around us suddenly fell silent. Isabel stood a few feet away, her freshly manicured nails digging so deep into a water bottle that the plastic twisted with a loud crunch. "Let go." I pushed against his chest, struggling. His heartbeat under the fabric was fast and heavy. "I can manage." "Let go." But Julian's eyes suddenly turned red. "Do you have to be like this?" His voice was a low whisper. "Even if you hate me, don't gamble with your own health." The sound of hurried footsteps approached. The on-site medic pushed through the crowd, holding an open packet of glucose powder. A colleague I was close with knelt down and held it to my lips, then shot a pointed look at Julian. "Mr. Shen, I think your girlfriend needs you more." Following her gaze, everyone finally noticed Isabel, who was now crouched on the ground, clutching her stomach. Julian froze, his arms finally losing their strength. I took the glucose and drank it down. As the liquid slid down my throat, I suddenly remembered a basketball game when I was 16. Julian had run across half the field just like this, to press a strawberry candy into my hand when my blood sugar dropped. The team-building event ended with a colleague from HR driving me home. When my mom saw my scraped knees, she was frantic and insisted on taking me to the hospital for a checkup. I couldn't argue with her, so we went to the nearest hospital that evening. The waiting area was mostly empty, except for a single figure sitting in the corner. Lucy, Adrian Fu looked up, his eyes shining brightly under the pale lights. His knee was wrapped in thick gauze, and a dark red bloodstain had seeped through to the outer layer, like a plum blossom blooming on snow. "What happened to you?" I frowned instinctively. He followed my gaze down and then chuckled. "It's nothing, just a fender bender today." His tone was so casual, as if he were saying, "I just had a cup of coffee." As a nurse pushed a medicine cart past, I heard her mutter, "8 stitches in his knee and he says it's nothing." The tips of Adrian's ears turned red, and he quickly changed the subject. "You look a little pale, low blood sugar again." Like a magician, he pulled a fruit candy from his jacket pocket. "Strawberry flavor. I heard you like it." I felt bad refusing, so I nodded and took it. Over the next few days, we kept running into each other at the hospital. He had his dressing changed regularly, and I had my blood sugar rechecked. Sometimes, if it was raining, he would hold his umbrella and limp alongside me to the parking lot. It was strange. The man who had once verbally demolished his opponents on the debate stage was incredibly gentle and private. One day, the sunlight in the hospital corridor was particularly beautiful. Adrian was sitting on the examination bed in the treatment room, the tips of his ears bright red. "Lucy," he said, unconsciously picking at a loose thread on his knee bandage, "I think we'd be good together. We're both single. Maybe you could consider me." The test results in my hand fell to the floor with a clatter. "I'm sorry, you don't have to answer now." He bent down to pick up the report, not even flinching when the movement pulled at his wound. "I have plenty of patience." A week later, Adrian started showing up at my office building. On Monday, he brought a bouquet of dewy pink tulips, saying he passed a flower shop and thought they would suit me. On Wednesday, he brought a limited edition strawberry cake, claiming it was a buy one, get one free deal and a waste not to eat. On Friday, he even bought bubble tea for all my colleagues. The most ridiculous part was that Lisa, who sat next to me, actually offered him her seat and winked at me. "Director Chung, Mr. Fu said he's here to discuss business." The breakroom gossip got more and more outrageous. During lunch break, a good friend cornered me in the restroom. "I heard Adrian Fu has an 8-pack. Is it true?" "I don't know." "Liar." She shook my shoulders. "When he was holding that bouquet yesterday, his shirt was so tight. Amy from reception said she saw his line outside the glass door." Adrian was bent over, fixing a jam drawer for me. The hem of his well-ironed shirt lifted slightly with his movements, revealing a sliver of a taut waistline. Damn it, he was definitely doing that on purpose. The breakroom gossip was at its peak when she suddenly lowered her voice and leaned in close. "Seriously, though, those abs, are they, like, really hard?" She gestured in the air with her fingers. "I heard that when he sweats, you can see the light glisten on them. Come on, tell me, how many packs does he have? Are they nice to touch?" I bit down on my straw, and my mind suddenly flashed back to a summer afternoon. After winning a tennis tournament, Adrian had lifted his shirt to wipe away sweat, and his lean torso had glistened like honey in the sun. "I think there are 8, I said instinctively, but I only saw it by chance. "Ah, Lucy, you hit the jackpot," she squealed, and I scrambled to cover her mouth. Just then, the sound of shattering glass came from the main office area. Julian was standing in the middle of the debris, blood dripping from his fingertips, staining a document with dark red flowers. Isabel was trying to dab at the cut with a tissue, but he violently pushed her away. "Don't touch me." His voice was terrifyingly hoarse, but his eyes were locked on me. Sunlight slanted in from the floor-to-ceiling window, making his face deathly pale. He looked as if he had just witnessed the end of the world. Adrian appeared behind me at some point, his warm palm resting gently on my shoulder. "Lucy, I booked dinner. Let's go after work." His voice was just loud enough for the entire office to hear. Julian suddenly bent down to pick up the glass shards, oblivious as the fragments cut into his palm. Blood trickled down his watchband, creating a winding red line on the beige carpet. The entire office was silent. Julian's hand was still bleeding, the bright red drops tapping out a soft rhythm on the floor. Finally, he walked over to me, his gaze fixed on my face, like a gambler betting his last chip. "Lucy," his voice was a wreck, "I'm hurt. Can you give me a band-aid?" I instinctively glanced at my purse. I did always keep band-aids in there, cartoon ones, waterproof ones, medicated ones. It was a habit I'd had since middle school, because Julian was always getting scrapes and bruises from playing soccer. "I don't have any," I heard myself say. Julian's pupils contracted sharply. He suddenly grabbed my wrist, his bloody fingertips leaving a glaring red stain on my sleeve. But you always, Mr. Shen. Adrian stepped between us, holding a newly opened medical dressing. Use this. I got it out for you. He glanced meaningfully at Julian's bleeding palm. I'm afraid it won't be enough. Julian stumbled back a step. He looked down at his blood-stained hand and suddenly laughed. The sound was worse than crying. Lucy, you're so cruel. Isabel rushed over to him. Julian, I'll take you to the hospital. Let's go. Get away from me. He shoved her hand off. Julian's blood was still dripping, forming a small, startling pool of red on the floor. I remembered a rainy day in 6th grade when Julian had beaten up a boy who had pulled my hair. On the way home, he had swung his bruised wrist and grinned. Lucy, you look so ugly when you cry. But he had secretly hidden his blood-stained school uniform sleeve behind his back. Later, that boy and his friends retaliated by pushing him out of a second-story window. When I found him, he was sitting amidst shattered glass, awkwardly trying to hide the wounds on his arm. Stop crying. It doesn't hurt. It's just like a cat scratch. But blood was pouring from between his fingers, soaking his sleeve so much you could wring it out. That night, I ran to 3 different pharmacies and bought a whole box of cartoon band-aids. The next day, when I forced his sleeve up, the tips of his ears were beet red. Lucy, have you no shame? But he still obediently let me cover his battered arm with pink kitten band-aids. And then what happened? Later, Isabel had walked past my desk in her 4-inch heels and deliberately knocked over my bag. As the Hello Kitty band-aids scattered across the floor, she had laughed hysterically. Oh my God, Director Chung, are you still in elementary school? Why are you still using such childish things? And Julian had been standing right behind her, a faint smile on his lips. I don't have any band-aids, I said, looking into Julian's eyes. I stopped carrying them a long time ago. Julian suddenly started trembling violently. His bloody hand reached out into the air, as if trying to grasp a long-lost summer evening. Back then, I was standing on my toes, applying a band-aid for him, and he was looking down at the whirl of hair on my head, smiling. Lucy, when will you ever grow up, you little crybaby? I looked away from him, my gaze dropping. Julian's hand hung in the air, blood dripping from his fingertips, creating a small red flower on the floor. He suddenly smiled, a fragile expression, like a crack on the surface of ice. Fine. That single word seemed to drain all the strength from his body. He pulled his hand back. As he turned, he stumbled, leaving a blurry, bloody handprint on the glass door. Isabel rushed to support him, but he gently pushed her away. I watched his back disappear into the elevator, and I suddenly remembered that day when he was 16. After he had fought for me, he had the same back then. The setting sun had stretched his shadow so long it could cover me entirely. Now, the office lights cast his shadow on the wall, as thin as a piece of paper, as if a gust of wind could tear it apart. Adrian quietly handed me a wet wipe, and only then did I realize my nails had dug deep into my palm. One day after a meeting, Isabel locked the door and cornered me in the break room. Lucy, she said, her nails digging into her palms, you're doing this on purpose, aren't you? I slowly stirred my coffee, the foam creating a small swirl at the edge of the cup. I don't know what you're talking about. Isabel suddenly grabbed the sugar jar and threw it against the wall. Glass shards scattered near my feet. Stop pretending. Her chest heaved. Seeing Julian so miserable because of you. You're probably laughing yourself to sleep every night, aren't you? I set down my cup. The ceramic bottom made a sharp click against the marble countertop. MS, Foo. I looked directly into her red-rimmed eyes. You've got 2 things wrong. First, I said slowly, we broke up a long time ago. The engagement is off. We have nothing to do with each other. Second, I turned on the tap to rinse my cup, the sound of the running water covering her heavy breathing. I don't want to know about his current state. Please don't come bothering me about him again. Shaking the water from the cup, I pushed past her rigid body. As the lock turned, I heard her hysterical scream from behind me. You're so proud of yourself, aren't you? Not at all. I glanced back at her one last time. Lucy Ching, know when to let go. He's just a man. If you want him, you can have him. The fluorescent light of the break room cast a cold glow on Isabel's face. Her carefully applied eyeliner was slightly smudged from her agitation, making her look like a pathetic, stray cat. You think you're so great. Her voice was shrill. You're just banking on the fact that he can't forget you. Isabel, I interrupted. Do you know the difference between humans and animals? She stared at me, stunned. An animal will wag its tail and beg for forgiveness after being hit, I said, pushing my chair back and standing up. A human won't. A human will hit back. From the day he slapped me, we were over. She suddenly grabbed my wrist, her acrylic nails digging into my skin. Stop acting so high and mighty. What does a spoiled princess like you know? I pried her fingers off one by one, watching her newly done crystal nails tremble. I know. Of course. For example, I know that Julian sent you here to test me. And I know even better, I leaned in and whispered in her ear, that you're not feeling so great right now. Are you? She froze. I smiled. Being sent by your boyfriend to gauge his ex-girlfriend's feelings must be pretty embarrassing. Right. But don't worry. When I said we broke up, I meant it. Lucy Ching. Never go back for seconds. Go back and tell Julian. I'll say it again. I'm serious. There's absolutely no chance for us anymore. Isabel's expression was a complicated mess of shame, humiliation, and confusion. As I left, her voice followed me, tinged with a faint unwillingness to accept defeat. Lucy, is it just because he hit you? Yes, it's just because he hit me, I answered again, with the same answer as before. That evening, I received a call from an unknown number. Without thinking much of it, I answered. The breathing on the other end suddenly became so quiet I almost thought the call had dropped. Lucy, Julian's voice was rough, as if it had been scraped with sandpaper. I'm sorry, I read your diary. I gripped my phone, my knuckles turning white. The pink satin diary he was talking about was a gift he had spent half a day searching the city for on my 10th birthday. He had sweat on his forehead then, but he had proudly lifted his chin. Lucy, you have to write all your secrets in here. When we're old, we can read it together. So, I heard myself sneer. What are you trying to say now? The sound of rustling paper came through the phone. Julian's voice suddenly choked up. Page 217. You wrote that on the day I proposed. You would give me the diary on our wedding night. The neon lights outside my window blurred into a smear of color. I wiped my eyes hard and realized my palm was wet. Julian, I took a deep breath. Do you know what's written on the last page? Silence on the other end. It says I enunciated each word clearly. Today, I threw this diary away. Goodbye to my 18 years of love. I heard the frantic sound of pages being turned, as if Julian were desperately flipping through the diary. I'm sorry, his voice trembled. Lucy, I looked out at the falling snow. That's enough. I cut him off softly. Do you see the date on that last entry? The line went dead silent. It was the day you slapped me in public. I said coldly, Julian, everything you're saying now is meaningless to me. And don't call me again. Don't look for me again. Julian, a good ex should act like they're dead. I hung up. On my 24th birthday, my parents wanted to throw a party for me and told me to invite my friends. I didn't want to invite Julian, but thinking of how kind his parents had been to me growing up, I sent an invitation to their family as well. Adrian also shamelessly managed to get an invitation from me. On the day of the party, Julian arrived with Isabel on his arm. I was pouring tea for his father. Lucy has grown up, Mr. Shen said, patting my hand, though his eyes glanced toward the door. That brat doesn't deserve you. Uncle, let's not talk about that. I smiled and refilled his cup. Have some tea. It's quite good today. The party was a success. As it was winding down, I went out to the terrace alone to get some fresh air. The terrace wind carried the chill of early autumn. I heard footsteps behind me. Lucy, Julian's voice was a wreck. His suit was wrinkled, his tie was askew, and he reeked of alcohol. I don't understand why we ended up like this. He suddenly grabbed my wrist. We were about to get married. We were on the path to happiness together. The night wind suddenly turned biting cold. So you're blaming me? I laughed softly. Blaming me for not forgiving you for one slap. His pupils constricted, as if stung by my mockery. But why should I forgive you? Besides, that night at the bar, a sarcastic smile touched my lips. I heard everything. Julian stumbled backward, as if his spine had been removed. I heard your bet, I said, smoothing my sleeve. Too bad for you. You bet on the wrong outcome. A bet's a bet, Julian, and you lost. I turned and walked back toward the bright lights. Don't make me lose all respect for you. The air in the bar that night was thick with smoke and alcohol, stinging my eyes. I had just reached the private room when I heard Julian's friends jeering. Julian, you're the man, stringing along the Ching family's princess for so long. Aren't you afraid she'll actually leave you for good this time? Julian was lounging in his chair, a playful smirk on his face. A little sweet talking is all it takes. After all these years, don't you think I know her by now? Isabel leaned in close, her chestnut curls brushing his shoulder. If you ask me, girls like Director Chim are the easiest to handle. Her red lips curved upwards. I bet even if you slapped her in public, as long as you sweet-talk her a bit afterward, she'd come running back like a pathetic puppy. begging you not to leave her. I know these love-struck girls best. The group hooted, saying there was no way. Isabel egged him on. Why don't you give it a try, Julian? Amidst the neon lights and laughter, Julian downed his beer in one go. Fine, I'll try, he said, wiping the foam from his lips with a careless smile. 18 years of friendship, all reduced to a bet at a bar. In that moment, it felt as if the bitter alcohol had seeped into my very soul. On the terrace, Julian's face was as white as a sheet. You heard, he stumbled forward, trying to grab my hand. Lucy, I was drunk that night. It was just a joke. It didn't mean anything. A joke. It didn't mean anything. I took a step back, the night wind scattering the last of my patience. But the next day, you really did try. I didn't, Julian. I looked at his face. Don't deny it. It's pathetic. You know. He froze. I looked at him and said softly, didn't you always say that talking badly about people behind their backs was a terrible thing to do? Look at yourself. Are you any better? A man who makes bets about his own fiancé is truly classless. All the color drained from Julian's face. The moonlight illuminated his pale smile. He opened his mouth, but in the end, his arms just fell limply to his sides. The wind billowed the sheer curtains on the terrace. Julian's suit looked gray and ashen in the moonlight, like a statue slowly eroding away. His lips trembled, but no sound came out. I was wrong. Actually, back then, I wanted to know what you were thinking. I took a step forward, my heel crushing the shadow he cast on the ground. Did you think I would just swallow my pride and forgive you? Or did you think, just as Isabel said, that a little sweet talking would have me coming back like a dog wagging its tail? Julian looked up sharply, his eyes webbed with bloodshot veins. I looked him straight in the eye. But it doesn't matter. I don't care anymore. I don't care who you are, or what you think. None of it matters to me, because I don't have to care about someone who is irrelevant to my life. No, that's not it. He reached for me, but froze when he saw the undisguised scorn on my face. See, I laughed softly. Even now, you can't admit it. Deep down, you've always looked down on me. Julian's Adam's apple bobbed. If I hadn't hit you, it wouldn't have mattered. I cut him off. Julian, you wavered in this relationship, didn't you? For a moment, you thought that marrying me would be a boring, predictable life. Then Isabel appeared, and you found that being with her was exciting. She gave you a different kind of experience. It's normal, Julian. You liked me because we were childhood friends, from similar families, but in the end, you didn't love me, or rather, you didn't love me enough. You thought I was pretty, but that didn't stop you from thinking I was boring. You felt we were too familiar, that the spark was gone. But Isabel was different. She was my complete opposite, and you were drawn to that. But, Julian, even without Isabel, there would have been someone else, another young, beautiful, different girl. The problem is, you shouldn't have used me to prop yourself up. I let out a cold laugh. How dare you hit me? Didn't you know that no one has ever hit me before? What are you? Tell me, Julian, why did you dare to hit me? Who gave you that confidence? Julian's expression was ashen and lost. I had exposed the darkest, most hidden, most selfish desires of his heart, and he knew it. He had no defense left. Lucy, did I lose you? Julian, I said, taking one last look at the boy I grew up with. You didn't lose me, you lost yourself. As I turned away, the reflection in the glass door showed Julian collapsing to his knees. The moonlight on the terrace was like a cold blade, pinning Julian's shadow to the ground. His suit was still impeccably tailored, but he looked as if his soul had been ripped out, leaving only an empty shell. Don't you love me anymore? His voice was barely a whisper, as if asking a question to which he already knew the answer. I looked at him. The boy I had looked up to for my entire youth now seemed as fragile as a lost child. I never loved you. Julian's body jolted, as if struck by an invisible hammer. What did you say? I was in love with the boy who would fight for me, I said calmly. The boy who would secretly slip me a strawberry candy when my blood sugar was low. The night wind lifted the hem of my dress. In the distance, I could hear my parents laughing. But that Julian died in that bar, during that bet. Tears streamed silently down Julian's face. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. You know what? I said, taking one last look at this familiar stranger. I'm so glad we never got married. As I walked back toward the warm lights of the party, I heard a choked sob behind me. The sound was quickly swallowed by the cheerful noise of the celebration, just like our past, which would eventually be washed clean by time. Later, Isabel was optimized out of her job. I heard Julian broke up with her as well. He became a different person, a silent shadow that started appearing everywhere I went. There would be warm soy milk and egg tarts on my desk in the morning. He would save the quietest corner of the cafeteria for me at lunch. After work, his footsteps would follow me from a distance of 10 meters. What exactly are you trying to do? I finally cornered him in the stairwell. The twilight filtering through the window etched his weary features in sharp relief. He was still wearing the cufflinks I had given him. The ones I had saved up my allowance for 3 months to buy for his 18th birthday. His Adam's apple bobbed. I just want to give you back everything I owe you. I don't need it. I cut him off. The best compensation you can give me is to stop harassing me, Julian. Don't make me lose all respect for you. I didn't tell anyone about my decision to resign. On my last day, I just took a few close colleagues out for a farewell dinner. Julian was the last to find out I was going abroad for my master's degree. I don't know how he heard the news. On the day I left, he followed my car for a long time. Outside the window, the once proud and confident young man was chasing after me in a pathetic display. The plane trees along the road blurred past, and his figure in the rearview mirror grew smaller and smaller. The wind billowed his white shirt, making him look like a bird with a broken wing. Lucy, his cry was lost in the roar of the engine. My mother glanced at me with concern, but I just shook my head. In the rearview mirror, his running figure shrank until it finally disappeared behind the plane trees at the corner. As the plane took off, I opened the window shade. At 30,000 feet, the sun was shining brightly. News about Julian reached me in scattered fragments over the years. A friend told me he started drinking heavily, causing scenes at bars. Another said he had become a new magnate in the business world, ruthless at the negotiating table. Someone else said he changed girlfriends faster than he changed shirts, but I would often get late-night calls from an unknown number from back home. I didn't care. I treated it all as gossip to go with my afternoon coffee and went back to writing my thesis. One day, there was a sunshower in London. As I rushed into the classroom, I ran right into Adrian Fuss' surprised face. His eyes were gentle, and he was dressed in casual clothes. Lucy, long time no see. He brushed a raindrop from my hair, his smile warmer than a sunset over the Thames. This time, can I be the one to pursue you? During my 2 years abroad, an anonymous package would arrive on my birthday every year. Sometimes it was the almond liqueur I had mentioned once on social media. Sometimes it was a limited edition art book I had liked on Instagram. Once, it was even a bottle of orange-scented hand cream, the exact same kind I used as a child. I accepted them all but never opened them, just stacked them in a corner. The rainy season in Cambridge always felt long. On graduation day, Adrian was waiting for me outside the library with an umbrella, his shoulders dusted with cherry blossoms. He wore the same graduation pin as me and smiled brighter than the sun. Lucy, would you consider dating your senior? I looked at his trembling fingers, burst out laughing, and nodded. Later, we ended up working in the same office building. He found new ways to send things to my office every day. Sometimes it was hot cocoa, sometimes a handwritten card. The most extravagant was a delivery of 999 roses. One weekend, Adrian finally found the unopened gifts in my storage room. He crouched in front of the boxes for a long time, then suddenly looked up. Should we throw them out? I thought for a moment and nodded. He stood up and hugged me, a faint scent of cedarwood clinging to him. You know, it seems like a waste to just toss them. How about we donate them to an orphanage? A long time later, Adrian was scrolling through his phone and suddenly exclaimed, "Look." The last photo was of the children who had received the donations, holding up toys and smiling brightly, and the gift box that had once been so carefully wrapped was now resting quietly in a child's hands, covered in the innocent fingerprints of children. Outside, the first snowflake of the year landed on the windowsill. Adrian's kiss landed softly on my hair. Happy birthday, Lucy. Yes, happy birthday to me.